Did was I had this little wooden box and I took the door and the hinges off of it and I attached the top part, which kind of looks like a door, to this box. So I'm putting two of those boxes together to be my fairy house. Next I found this used, which I had saved, Bamboo-Ware Physicians Formula Compact, and it used to have pressed powder in it and like a little makeup brush in the bottom. So I took out the liners here and here and I put the house up on top of one of the box lids to raise up the doorway, and I'm gonna turn these two over, and that's gonna be the stair steps leading into the fairy house. So now I have hot glued the top box on top, and I'm about to glue this little box to the top middle so that I can use it for a brace for the two roof halves. So to get the two roof shingle portions of the box to stay together, there's that brace that's like up in there in between, and I just put some hot glue across the top here to stick these two pieces together, and eventually that'll all get filled in with the epoxy putty. But for now, I'm just needing them to stay in place so I can actually lift them up. And I'm going to try to lift it. No, the glue's not set yet. I'll blow it. Try to cool it off just a little bit more so I can lift this up. I'm trying to film this holding it. Okay, so I've lifted those two pieces up, and that's going to be the brace, and I'm going to fill the top of that with epoxy putty and then put these two pieces back down on top. My two equal size balls of epoxy putty, and I'm going to mush these two together, make a long snake, and stick it up underneath the roof area to hold it all together. So the epoxy putty is up underneath the structure, and I've just taken an old piece of wood framing that I had, and I've filled in that channel across the top of the roof for now. Next I have this little dollar store puzzle. Okay, and what I'm going to do is lift off the top, take the beans out. I'm going to paint the inside of this and put it up here to look like a window. Okay, so I had some of this casting material that you can buy to make casts out, or like plaster casts. It's like a sheet, you dip it in water. So I cut two. I put that sort of across the top of the roof. I added some Elmer's glue. And now I have this bag that limes came in. And it has this very cool, like plastic look to it. And I'm going to cover the roof with this to just sort of make the whole thing more stable. So now I have the window in place, I have the green lime paper on top of the roof, and I think it's going to really be a good way for me to attach all the moss to the top later on. I've just sort of tucked it into the back side here. I had this little picture that I drew a long time ago of a firefly, which gave me the inspiration to try and work this out. I'm covering the whole outside of this fairy house with a tan colored grout to even up, to like make all the sharp corners more rounded. So I had this stick of like floral wire. And I put a little hole, a pilot hole, right in the base of the bottom of the house here. And then I'm just gonna stick the wire back in the house. And hopefully when I cover all of this up with the grout, part of this wire will show and part of it will be embedded into the grout. And then I'm going to make a clay figure to cover this section. And then this little light bulb back here will look like the tail of a firefly once I paint it, to make it look like there's like a little light above the house. Okay, so I mixed up some grout that I had. It's just Polybrand non-sounded grout in a orange juice container, which originally was going to be my fairy house, but I decided it was just too small. So I've slathered on the grout, and I've made an executive decision that my door won't open. So the grout is just now on the front side of the fairy house. I have the window in place, I have some sticks and twigs, primarily larger ones, kind of into the grout and out of the grout. I had these little wooden shapes, so I've used them around the door, around the window, and there's a little part up here I layered 3 sections and then put grout, laid another section, put grout, laid another section. So I also have this dangle coming from the center of the door, and I've embedded it into the grout. So that's the front half. I will add more moss. I just didn't have very much. I just had a little bit. And I will hot glue more moss and embellishments onto this once the grout is dry. As you can see, that's the upper end of the roof there, and I was literally with hot glue pushing this down. I got it on my finger. I burned my finger. I reached up, and I still had it hot on my finger, and I ended up burning my lip. So now I have a blister on my lip. Oh well, such is the life of a crafter. All right, that's it for now. So I've added a few more things. I had a little foam butterfly, which I stuffed into the grout right here next to the door, and it'll get painted later, gessoed first and then painted. Here's the little light bulb, which has some grout on it, but that'll pick right off, which I'm going to turn this into like a little light above the door once I decorate it and cover that. On the roof, I added this little drain strainer right into the grout, and I'll cut this open and I'll be able to stick twigs and feathers out of that. I added this little plastic leaf at the top of the roof. I added a few seashells up into the grout here, there, just a couple that I had. I wanted them to get into the grout. And then all along the top, I mushed grout all over where the line bag is on the 2 sides of the roof, because I had more grout left over. So I'll have to mix up more and cover the rest of the house. But you know, it's coming along. My lip still hurts. All right, that's it for now until this dries and I can mix up some more and finish the rest of the back and the sides. And then I'll make the base, which will have a little shell pond in the front of it and some furniture, and we'll see where we go from there. So I'm back, and oh my gosh, I am such a messy crafter. But as you can see, I've added a little bit of green glitter in a few places on the house. I did cut open that sink strainer like I said I was going to, and I stuffed a whole bunch of grout into it and then added twigs and leaves. I had these like, you can see one pretty good right there, these leaves that came in a package. Here's one right there. They look like they're silk. They look see-through. So I've added some of those, and I've put a bunch of grout underneath a few and then added them onto the roof. And I didn't have moss, but I did have pencil shavings. I had a great big pencil sharpener. Here we go, one of the old-fashioned kinds. And I opened it up, and lo and behold, there was pencil shavings. So that's kind of what I've covered the roof with. I think that's about it for right now. I did also add some Elmer's glue into the grout for here and right there when I added those leaves onto the roof. So it's looking like this now, and probably gonna call it quits for the time being. Also working on some Valentine collages and some wax hearts. And okay, that's my fairy house for now. Like it was just too much, so I took it out. I have painted a little bit of color on some of those wooden shapes that I used in the grout for tile work. I've built a little landscape area to the side of the house, and this is going to be, the only thing I haven't done yet is put the house numbers up here. This is the shell pond out there, and this is my simulated water sprinkler coming out. I have the 3 windows on the side of the house. Here's the roof with some clumping moss that really set it off well. The only thing I bought for this fairy house was the moss. I bought 1 bag of clumping moss from Hobby Lobby in the miniatures department where you would make trains and things like that. So here's the back side of the house. And I still want to find a little tiny bird to like put inside this window here, or maybe a tiny fairy. Maybe I'll make a tiny fairy. Here's the other side of the house, and I want to also paint in or put in like some sort of like window decoration there. But other than that, it's completed. And this flower actually can come out and be changed. I built a little test tube into the grout, so this decoration here can come in and out